All right, episode 2. We're back. We have a name now. We've progressed. Each episode we're progressing. We're going for mind matter. Um, I guess we picked that name because it's broad enough that gives us enough wiggle room to talk about different things. But at the same time, I think it resonated with the two of us because, we're talking about stuff that has to do with probably like higher thinking and things that matter. So, mind
Yeah.
matter. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of what we're gonna touch on is gonna be about mindset.
Yeah.
I think we both agree that that's pretty important. If you want to go anywhere in your life, your mindset is definitely gonna play an important role.
For
So
sure. For sure. So today we're going to talk kind of three different topics we've planned, and hopefully you guys enjoy them.
yeah,
So how about we start with the advice for 17-year-olds?
sure. So this is just each of us. We're gonna outline three pieces of advice that we would give to our 17-year-old selves.
Mm-hmm.
So,
How old are you now?
pardon?
How old are you now?
So I'm 24.
Okay, I'm
So
25.
I guess we didn't really like introduce ourselves that much in the last video. So do you want to
I like the
elaborate?
mystery. I like the mystery. Let them figure it out each episode. Who are these
Just
kids?
put the pieces together.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
just they're
So
just like that
that
meme from that guy from It's Always Sunny. Like he's just like putting all the stuff together.
slowly but surely.
Yeah.
So I guess at 17, I was in high school. I was intelligent enough to get good grades and not have to put in much effort, and so I was woefully unprepared for university, and I really wish if I had done things differently, I would certainly be farther ahead than I am now. Not that I'm, feel bad about where I'm at, but I just, I could have been that much farther ahead, which would have been nice. So
Or
here's,
or what could have possibly happened is that if you didn't get either lucky or meet the right people at the right time or sort of change your way of thinking at the right time, you may have never actually landed on the path that you are in right
mm,
now because of the
true,
way you
yeah.
set yourself up back in high
Certainly,
school.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I didn't learn these things at 17, but I consider myself lucky to have learned them by 24.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So certainly, you don't have to be 17 to take this advice.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you are 17, it's probably unlikely that you have established this yet.
Yeah. Dude, I was not a smart kid like you when I was 17. I had to put in a lot of effort to get the grades I wanted. Otherwise, I couldn't get the results. Like I would never really fail a class, but I wasn't able to ever get like even a B unless I went max out on all the homework and all the assignments. Unless it was biology, which was the thing I was interested in, and which was the thing I eventually went on to study. That was different, but I think that overall, there's just a couple of things that s- slowly started to shift my thought process when I was probably around 23. I'm 25 now.
Hmm.
And it was like one small step at a time, one tiny little, piece of marble on top of this mountain of marbles that I'm hoping to create one day to get to where I am now, which is I'm 25. I'm not that far into my journey, but I feel like in the past 2 years I've gone a lot farther than I had probably in the first 22.
Mm.
Um, and a lot of that obviously has to do with growing up, but and a majority of that just happened to being accidentally exposed to certain pieces of content because I was bored. I was bored. I was watching YouTube. I was watching, I think I was watching Shark Tank,
Hmm.
and I there was like a few lines. One of the sharks, I can't even remember what the line was or who it was who said it, that made me interested and in like a particular idea, and then I started YouTubing that video, and as a result, my algorithm, YouTube algorithm, changed in a way where it wanted me to just watch like videos on mindset and methodologies and whatnot, and like Tony Robbins and Gary Vaynerchuk and all that. So then I'm like, I don't even know who these people are, but these videos are interesting, and that sort of happened to me and like accidentally.
Okay.
But I think that a lot of the videos that I've watched, the only reason that I kept watching them was because I was ready for that information. I was ready to
Right.
accept that type of information.
Yeah, I definitely think, like, when I was a kid, um, so my mom's a teacher,
Hmm.
and she's all like mega into mindset and stuff. And
Hmm.
so when I was a kid, she used to feed me all that kind of mindset stuff. When I was a teenager, she made me read seven. I'm sure some people have heard of the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. It's a
Hmm.
good book, but there's also the Seven Habits of Highly Effective Teenagers. So she made me read that and all that. And so I kind of knew how to do mindset. I think probably subconsciously I had a good mindset, but I definitely wasn't in any position to really pursue it on my own without like an external motivator.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, I really coasted through high school. I really coasted through my first 2 years of university.
Hmm.
Didn't do bad, I had like a 3.2 GPA or something by second year.
Yeah, same.
And then I decided I wanted to go to law school, and it was just like, well, bam! Like, well, I'm not getting into law school with a 3.2,
Yeah, you
so I
kind
got
of
to
had to
figure out
like turn it
how.
on.
Yeah, I had to just, yeah, I turned on, and it was just same as you. In the last 2 years, I've made more progress in my life than I did. And I mean, I in my adult life, let's start that at 18 when I started university. So in the last 2 years, I've made more progress than I did in the first four,
Hmm.
significantly.
Hmm. Okay,
Um,
so then why don't we go into that right away? I think that's a good
sure.
segment.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, because we each made a list of three things. Let's talk about your top three and
Sure.
the top three things that you would, the pieces of advice you would give to a 17-year-old right now. That is basically the same advice that you would give to someone who's your age who
Hmm.
wants to get more out of life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, yeah, this is advice for anyone who hasn't delved deeply into these types of topics. But if you're 17 and you take on some of these habits, you're just, by the time you're 24, you're going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think my first piece of advice would be to choose a goal that you're excited to build, not a goal that you're excited to achieve. So if you choose a goal, if you choose something that you're only excited to achieve, it becomes it becomes really hard to maintain a positive outlook and forestall gratification long enough to achieve a goal worth achieving.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, certainly there are small goals. I want a new car or something where you can put yourself to work for 6 months to save up enough money for a new car, and that's fine. You can forestall gratification for 6 months. But when we're talking about, let's take a career goal. You want to start a business, you want to go to law school, go to med school, become a teacher, things that take 5, 6, 7, 8 years to do.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think it's practical advice to say that you can forestall gratification effectively for 8 years.
Yeah.
You have to get some form of gratification in the process. And I think arguably that you're on the right track when
Mm-hmm.
you're getting a large degree of gratification out of the process.
Yeah, like
So,
I'm just gonna interrupt there. Like I
sure.
totally agree. There were many points in my university life where I genuinely felt the most content and the most, I guess, fulfilled if I actually put in the work, sacrificed by maybe missing a bunch of social outings with my friends that I really wanted to go to. Um, but then got the result I wanted on an assignment that was worth like 30% of my grade.
Mm-hmm.
Or scored really high on the midterm, or got the highest mark in the class or the second highest mark in the class on the midterm, which was possible in my university because the classes were only like 30 students most of the time. So it was a reasonable goal to have. And I felt anytime that didn't happen, there was this guilt of like, I could have done better.
Mm.
Like, why didn't I put in the time? Like, it was always like, why didn't I do it? I could have gotten it. It's like this semester I could have gotten an A in this, an A minus in that, and an A plus in that. So why am I seeing all these B's on my transcript? Well, because I didn't put in the time to really research all the stuff I needed to do for my big essay. I didn't spend the week I said I would to prepare for my final. I spent 2 days.
Yeah.
But then when I actually went in and I put in the amount of time I needed to, even before getting the results of doing well on the test, just like feeling good about learning and feeling good about achieving that day's goal of covering 2 chapters was enough fulfillment to keep going.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you. You can't just look at that end result, let's say in your case, being a lawyer, of whatever kind of lawyer you want to be, because that's so far away and it's such a terribly long process and it's not easy.
Yeah.
That if you don't find short-term daily or weekly checklists that fulfill you along the way, you're not going to make it. You're going to burn out.
Yeah. So let's go for my next point. It kind of builds on this. My next point is to have high expectations of your life, high expectations of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and high expectations of the people that you let fill your life, the people that you have around you.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take, for example, like when I was studying for the LSAT. Studying for the LSAT, so that's the law school admissions test. So you have to write the LSAT to go to law school in Canada or the United States. There's a couple law schools that don't require it, but pretty much all do. And so building on the last point, I enjoyed studying for the LSAT. I found it fun. It was super interesting. And I knew when I hit the LSAT, I knew, okay, if this is fun, then obviously I'm doing the right thing. This is something I'm excited to build, because I not only am I excited to be a lawyer, but I'm also enjoying the process of becoming a lawyer. Now, that being said, that's not enough. Okay, I didn't enjoy the LSAT enough that I had fun the entire time, right? I was studying about 8 hours a week, 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. I didn't enjoy all of that.
Yeah.
I did it because I have really high expectations of myself. Right. So I think it's good to find something that you're excited about, but then you have to buckle down and you have to know that it's not always going to be fun just because you like it.
Right.
Or at least achieving the level that you're capable of isn't always going to be fun. And that's where the expectations come in. And also there's some joy to be found in meeting those expectations, right? Sure, it wasn't fun the whole time, but it sure as hell was fun when I got my mark back.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think that a lot of people, they maybe they know what they're capable of, or maybe they don't even know what they're capable of, but at the very least, most people don't hold themselves to the standard of what they're capable of. So I think it's really important to pick the life that you want, even though you know it's going to be really hard to get there. So have really high expectations of your life and be prepared to meet those expectations. I think it's really important to have the high expectations of yourself, hold yourself to a really high standard. And then, and I think this is probably the most important. It sort of builds off the other two, but it's the most important is to have high expectations of the people around you. So that's not to say that, just because somebody doesn't hold themselves to the same standard as you do, or maybe doesn't have as high expectations in the areas that you have high expectations. Maybe they have high expectations themselves in another area that they find more important.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that you shouldn't, be around that person or be friends with that person, but let's talk particularly about like your closest friends and people you date.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people a lot of people don't hold their significant others particularly to the standard maybe that they would want to. So,
Okay.
for example, I'm married at 24, so that's not very common. But I think one of the reasons why my wife and I work so well is because we hold ourselves to really high standards, and we hold each other to really high standards.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes she will notice that I'm letting something slip. I'll have told her, okay, this is my standard for myself, and
Mm-hmm.
then she helps me keep myself to that standard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really really important, either to have a significant other or a friend who's willing to help you keep the standards that you want to set for yourself.
Right.
Because it's not easy to build an amazing life, right? It takes a lot of hard work, and you're constantly going to be second guessing it. You're constantly going to be lazy here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess this works perfectly into my third point, which is you need to find somebody to grow with,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a best friend or a significant other, somebody who's going to be there growing with you. They don't have to be doing the same thing as you, but they need to have those similar standards, and they need to be willing to say, "Hey, look, you said you were going to do this, and you're slacking," or you know what, I know you're capable of doing this thing, and I think you should go for it. I think this is something you've said you really want, but right now you're not doing it because maybe you think you can't have it or something. But like,
Mm-hmm.
I know you can have it, so go get it, and I'm gonna help you go get it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's kind of like helping
yeah,
the other person be accountable, and at the
yes,
same
yeah,
time, they sort of reciprocate.
yeah, and part of the one of the most difficult parts of that is you have to find somebody who's willing to hold themselves to the same standard that you hold yourself. Otherwise, you get a lot of friction,
Mm-hmm.
because I couldn't hold her to a higher standard than I hold myself.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, if I held myself to a really high standard, then obviously I'm going to have some spillover where I'm going to hold her to a similar standard that I hold myself.
Mm-hmm.
And if she doesn't hold herself to that same standard, then she's just going to be feeling like I'm always like patronizing, or I'm always like, oh, well, I'm better than you, which
Right.
is not the key to a healthy relationship.
Right.
So I think that's one of the most difficult things. You have to pick your friends and your significant others really, really wisely, and it's really hard to do.
Yeah.
But if you have those really high standards of yourself, and you're willing to have those really high standards of other people, it definitely helps.
For sure, especially if you have those high standards kind of going into any type of early friendship or relationship, it sort of helps weed out the people that wouldn't work for you anyways. I find
Yes,
that at the
definitely, yeah.
beginning of most relationships, people make excuses for the people that they're starting to date, and it's mainly because they're excited about them, or maybe I don't know, it's just they think that they don't know much about them yet, so they're sort of giving them a little bit of a leeway. But I mean, for the most part, most people, you get to know them quite well within the first few conversations you have with them, unless they're very good at hiding stuff.
Hmm.
So just having that high expectation of other people just sort of filters people that wouldn't work for you in the first place, and could potentially help you find that long-term partner such as yourself. And you were pretty lucky to find that pretty early in your life.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, I know it's a cliche, but I can honestly say I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if it weren't for my wife. because she's fully comfortable to call me out on my bullshit,
Well, there you go.
to help me improve, and to make sure to hold me accountable to everything I say that I'm gonna do.
That's great.
She has no qualms with reminding me of what I said I was gonna do and calling me out when I'm not doing it. So
There you go. You know, I think those are all great pieces of advice to give to somebody who is 17, because that's usually around the time where people start thinking about that stuff anyways, right?
yeah, for
So
sure. Yeah,
just do a quick summary again, just in list form
sure.
of
Yeah,
the three pieces, and then we'll move on
yeah.
to mine.
So most important, well, not most important, just first, because they all sort of build up each other's. To choose a goal that you're not only excited to achieve, but
Mm-hmm.
that you also can find some excitement and fulfillment in building.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You got to love the journey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, have high expectations of your life, high expectations of yourself, and high expectations of the people that you surround yourself with,
Mm-hmm.
and find somebody to grow with. Somebody that is going to be that person to hold you accountable, that person to help you out, that person to pick up some slack here and there, whether it's a significant other or an extremely close friend or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, whoever it is, it doesn't matter, but you're not going to be able to do it on your own.
Awesome. So my
Right?
list's a little different. Um, I'm not married, so I have a slightly different perspective. So the first thing on my list for advice that I would give to a 17-year-old is learn how to say no. And I don't mean in like a bratty toddler way where you don't get your way and you start having a temper tantrum. It's not the same thing. It's learning to say no when you're asked something, or when there's an opportunity in front of you that was given to you, or when there's a proposal of some kind that you are either not comfortable with, don't want to do, or it, for whatever reason, is just not the best thing for you at that time. And that can be in many different settings. Mostly, I find the hardest setting to say no to are people that are close to you or your boss at work. And there's a fine line between of like saying no and being respected for it, and just not being a team player.
Mm.
So here's my, Uncle Vasal's advice of how to charm your way out of getting out of anything and having the person actually like you and respect you even more. Learn to say no if it's something that you don't want to do, but then offer up an alternative. So let's say this. If your boss is asking you to come in on your day off, for example, because they're short and you either can't, or you just need the day off, or you're busy, or you just don't want to come into work, say no, I can't, because A, you could come up with reasons like it's short notice, I actually have something planned, or I really need the day off. Never lie. If you don't have plans, don't say I have plans. Just say, honestly, boss, I need the day off. I'm super burnt out, and I just need that time for myself, so then I can actually be a good employee the other days I'm back at work. But then
Mm-hmm.
offer an alternative. Say, I am willing to work this day. So let's say it's a Saturday where it's normally off. I am willing to work a couple Saturdays a month if you let me know at least 3 days in advance.
Mm.
So offering an alternative, have that conversation, having that confidence to sort of reject something that you don't want to do, putting your, foot down, saying no, this isn't
Mm-hmm.
right for me right now, but then offering a solution shows that not only are you able to stand up for yourself and for others, but you're
Mm-hmm.
also a team player and willing to actually help, and you're not just saying no and just looking out for yourself.
For sure. And I wanted to just point out something that I do notice a lot of people that are younger than us struggle with is understand social capital.
Mm-hmm.
So when when your boss asks you to come in on a Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it works for you, like you don't really want to, but like you're fine, you don't have any plans, things are good, you're okay with it. Remember that you're making an investment into social capital.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do this now, you have some social capital to not do something later or to
Absolutely.
get some benefit later.
Absolutely.
Every time you make a social interaction, you are either exhausting or gaining social capital.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to take a month off in 6 months, pick up some extra Saturdays, because then you go to your boss and you say, "Oh, remember all those Saturdays that I picked up?" And that
You don't even have to say it;
whether
they would know.
no, exactly, they would know. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You actually probably don't say it,
Probably don't word it
but
that
just
way.
yeah. When you understand social capital, you will get so much more out of your life, so much easier, and people will look at you and they'll be like, "Oh, every time I ask for a day off, my boss gets mad, but when this guy asks for his day off, the boss seems to like him even better than he liked him when he entered the office." How does that work?
Mm-hmm.
It's because social capital, man. If you don't if you don't get social capital, you're not going to make it very far.
There you go. We should do just an entire video on that later. I'm gonna write that down. Social capital. No, it's a good topic. We can give different examples and whatnot. All right, I'm gonna move on my list. Um, the next one for me is learn to do it yourself. Now, what is it, and what do I mean by that? I mean pretty much everything that doesn't require a professional license, doesn't require some sort of uh, code that you need to go by, something that's just daily routine stuff that you can do, learn to do it yourself. The amount of men my age I know that can't cook a simple meal of chicken, rice, and broccoli astounds me.
Not to mention because you can find a recipe for how to do it on YouTube, step-by-step instructions.
Yes, like meal prepping, just put that into Google and you will have days of footage of honestly meals that taste so good, that are so easy to make, that are so cheap.
I never understand when somebody responds to me, "I don't know how to cook." I don't even know what that phrase means, because you're not saying I don't know how to cook.
You're
You're
saying I'm
saying
not
I don't
willing
know
to
how to
learn.
use Google.
I'm not willing
And
to learn. That's what that's
like my
saying.
grandpa knows how to use Google, so
It's a willingness to learn to
yeah.
do something yourself. So that's an example, cooking. My main reason that I want to say this to 17-year-olds is because, especially nowadays, so many things are automated. You don't even have to leave your house to watch a movie. You can stream a movie whether or not you got it legally on your computer. You don't even have to go out to grab a bite to eat. You can have it ordered to your house. And you don't even have to like open up your wallet and count change to give it to the person, because it'll automatically pay them using your card over the phone. All you had to do was download 2 apps to get that entire experience. I think what's happening is like we're taking away the need to do daily tasks, but that doesn't mean that those daily tasks, those daily routine things that you need to learn how to do aren't important and aren't necessary. By learning to do something yourself, you teach yourself a methodology of how to learn pretty much anything.
Mm.
So I'll give you an example. I know that if I want to learn something really well, and if someone just straight up tells me how to do it, it won't work. I have to somehow write it down, preferably in a chart format, no matter what it is, kind of like a checklist. And then I need to actually try it at least once and then review what I did wrong. And that doesn't matter whether or not it's me learning how to do a deadlift at the gym versus learning how to change a spare tire, or learning how to cook, or learning how to bake, or learning how to play a video game. I actually need to write down the steps. So even a video game, when there's a walkthrough, and if I just read it, it's not good enough. I actually have to write down, okay, these are the buttons I have to press, or this is the way I have to go for me to remember it. And then I won't actually refer to it anymore. I'll actually remember it that way. And the reason I know that now is because I forced myself to learn so many different things, from mundane tasks to important things that were in my degree, that I have learned how to teach myself in the most efficient way. And if you can learn quickly, you can do more faster than others, and that makes you lethal in any field. That's why I put it on the list.
Yeah, I agree. I think the difference between there's a difference between people who just have a little bit more self-discipline and they get a lot farther in life, but than people who don't. But when if you really want to be the best, the difference is efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the difference between somebody who knows how to learn something and, like you said, knows how to learn something in the fastest possible way that they could individually learn it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're obsessed with being like, not just getting things done as fast as they possibly can, and not so that they have more free time, so they can get more things done.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And hyper efficiency is a prerequisite to hyper success, for
Absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to move on to the last thing on my list, if you have nothing else on that point. Hit the gym. Prioritize your health, how you look, how you feel, and that'll change how everything else in your life goes. And I speak from experience. I actually started hitting the gym when I was 17. And I was not naturally strong, muscular, or anything. I was pretty decent at soccer, but I was just an average kid. I'm like 5'9", not really that big, not really that strong. Just started hitting the gym, and I didn't really know what I was doing. At that time, this was back in 2010, so this was before there was like an Instagram fitness celebrity every direction. There weren't that many YouTube channels dedicated. There was basically like P90X, which was on TV, and a couple other random apps that you could download. And that's how I got started. I just downloaded apps that had generic workouts, and I just used what made sense, and I just kind of troubleshooted along the way until I figured a thing that worked for me. And I think it was within like 4 months, I was drastically different. I went in weighing 150 pounds. I came out weighing 150 pounds, but I looked like a different individual. I had lost a ton of fat, and I had gained a ton of muscle for that time for me. And what happened was that turned into confidence. That was around the same time where I started doing really well in school. I actually started caring. That was the first semester I got straight A's in high school. And I felt that I had more energy. I was going to bed on time. I wasn't like kind of anxious when I was going to bed. My mind wasn't racing. I was like focused, and then I was like beat, and I would just go to bed. And just everything changed for the positive. And I found that during times in my adult life where I sort of shied away from the consistency at the gym, and for me it's the gym. For someone it can be a sport, it can be jiu-jitsu, it can be yoga, it can be whatever. For me, it's lifting weights and doing cardio workouts in the gym. That's just my thing. As an adult, when there were bouts, maybe periods of weeks or months where I kind of shied away from it, I felt not just the negative aspects on my health, but actually the negative performance mentally in in other avenues of my life, like both academically and just like socially.
Yeah, if anyone is sort of like me and they sort of make decisions a lot on research and statistics, if you do a minimum half hour of cardio 3 times a week, you significantly reduce your risk of degenerative brain disease.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I know you don't have to think about that now if you're 17, but you should, because nobody wants to have a degenerative brain disease. But even more practical for the life of a 17-year-old is they did a study on students learning new languages,
Mm-hmm.
and they had one group do intense cardiovascular exercise approximately 2 hours before learning new vocabulary terms, and the other group learned the same vocabulary terms with no cardio. And the group that did cardio remembered 20% more than the group that didn't. So if you struggle in school, you may actually experience a significantly increase in your ability to retain information and focus just based on doing cardiovascular exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And for people who say, well, I'm too tired to do cardio when I get home, unfortunately, you're probably too tired because you don't do cardio.
Yeah.
If you did more cardio, you'd have more energy.
Absolutely.
And I know it sucks to get started, but if you put in the time and the effort to get started,
mm-hmm.
it will change your life. Absolutely. I mean, I was lucky enough to be heavily involved in sports since I was a young kid, and
mm-hmm.
so it was never anything that I didn't do. I was just always I was playing soccer like 5 days a week
mm-hmm.
when I was in high school. But for people who don't, yeah, absolutely, it will change your life.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. And I think there's this myth that if you go to the, like, you have a certain amount of energy to expend per day, and if you go to the gym, then you're sort of not going to have energy for the rest of the day. And I think that's really only true when you're getting started. If you're not
mm-hmm.
used to it, you're definitely going to feel a little gassed. You're going to feel tired, but that's just sort of part of the process. And it's amazing how quickly your body adapts to turning that from something that tires you out and makes you want to take a nap to this like euphoric rush.
Yeah,
like it's pretty quick.
As we don't need to expand on this, but just as a general piece of advice, if you ever decide that you want to try something new, if you haven't done it for a month, you didn't actually try it.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely how I look at things. I always try things for at least a month before
mm-hmm.
I decide whether or not they're worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's scientifically guaranteed that if you do exercise for a month, you will notice that it's worth it.
Okay, well, that was all the advice that I have for 17-year-olds. I think it's pretty much all I can say. If you like
give us another 5 years. And,
yeah, we'll probably have like 3 more when I'm 30. Yeah. If you like this type of content, please make sure that you subscribe and also hit the little bell icon beside it to get notified in our future videos. And if you could like the video, that would really help with the algorithm. If there's anything in the video you disagree with or something that resonated with you, leave a comment. That it always just helps the algorithm, and it shows that people care enough to comment on our videos, and we'd love to hear what you have to say about it. So
yeah, we'd love to start a discussion in the comments and start getting an idea of what people like and dislike and what they're interested in.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, that was it. Mind Matter episode 2.